In 2016, I did what I recommend all of you do. My grandfather was 92 years of age at the time, and I took that video camera and I went down to his house in Fletcher. He lived in Elliott for many years, but he retired to Fletcher. And I set it up and we talked. We talked for 6 hours. And the reason I did that, I had several questions that I wanted to ask him. And one of them was whether or not it was really true that my great-great-grandmother, the one that I mentioned being from Tallapoosa County, Alabama, had really chopped up the poker table at the Alex Poker Hall on a Saturday night with a chopping axe to get her drunken, gambling husband home. My grandpa said, yes, it was true. And he could tell me exactly where it happened. It happened in Red Alexander's barn, he said, just west of Soldier Creek, on the side of that major state highway. And I thought, major state highway? Well, I'm a child of Highway 19. It's been the road through here my whole life. It was built in 1949, so it's slightly older than I am. So what's he talking about? That's the only major state highway I ever knew. So when I get curious about something, I'm kind of like a terrier, and I begin to research that. And I looked at the routes of old roads through the area. Well, it wasn't long before I stumbled onto something that, for my obsessive self, was magic. The survey plats of the first survey of the Chickasaw Nation in 1871. I got them from the Department of the Interior General Land Office records. I downloaded them. They've only been available since 2007. So you know which one I downloaded first. Township 5 North 6 West, because that's where I live. And then I saw immediately when I enlarged the plats, because I laid them down over a township and range grid into a computer mapping program, and I immediately saw that first major state highway that my grandfather was talking about. But I wasn't about to stop there, because I could see the northwest side of that highway and the southeast side of that highway, and it went somewhere else. So I downloaded one township at a time. I came this way to the Bradley Township, 5 North, 5 West. Then I came to Erin Springs, and I went all the way to a place that you folks will know very well. Has anybody here, or does everybody here know where Davis, Oklahoma is? Okay. In 1851, the United States military established a fort 7 miles west of where Davis is today. It was called Fort Arbuckle, and it's in far southeastern Garvin County. In 1859, because for some reason all these Englishmen and Irishmen that were at these forts believed that they needed to subjugate and exterminate the people who were indigenous to this area, Fort Arbuckle was not enough. So they built another fort, and it was called Fort Cobb. Everybody know where Fort Cobb is? Northwest of Anadarko. One thing that history has not done for us is provide us a good story of what was between Fort Arbuckle and Fort Cobb. So I download all these survey plats, and I make myself a homemade map. And it is truly amazing to me what I find. The Fort Cobb Trail. And if you've ever heard that word mentioned before in any history book, tell me so I can read it, because I find no references in all the historical documents in Oklahoma about the Fort Cobb Trail. It wasn't long before I understood that I had found much more than a major state highway. I had rediscovered the oldest military road that ran through the heart of the south central Ouachita Valley. I was even more amazed when I enlarged those survey plats and found that there was no settlement from Fort Arbuckle to Erin Springs and from the Little Washita River to Fort Cobb. What I had found was the very heart of the old Fort Cobb Trail. The oldest settlements in this section of Oklahoma. And when I enlarged those survey plats more, I found the names of the people who lived there written in little tiny letters beside the houses where they lived. One of my daughters was staying with me at the time, and she should have heard me holler at 5 o'clock in the morning when that happened. I had created a perfect snapshot of a long-forgotten world. A world before Erin Springs, before Lindsay, Bradley, Alex, and even Ninnecaw and Chickasha. Lindsay was a buffalo waller at the time. Erin Springs was Elm Springs. Bradley was the Jennings place. Alex was Maxfield's settlement, and Ninnecaw's founding was 20 years in the future. Chickasha was unbroken cow pasture, and the area where these towns are now was known as Moncrief's Crossing on the Little Washita River. I had never heard of these things before, and I went back and studied every scrap of paper. I looked at every scrap of paper in here. I looked at every scrap of paper at the Grady County Historical Society, the Garvin County Historical Society, but our story wasn't there. So I'm writing it. It's close to being done. It's finished in draft form. Let's see. I'm going to make OU Press turn me down. Right? It's an important story. It's our story. And that's what they wanted me to come here to tell. So when I started researching this even more, this heart of the old Fort Cobb Trail, I found out that our stories, our history, is told in the Texas newspapers. And you know, they're all online now. And I'm a computer geek, so I fashioned up these keywords and I searched all these old newspapers, and you wouldn't believe what I found. And I searched all the old databases that I could find in Texas and Oklahoma, and I came up with stories that I want to tell you guys today. They're the stories of the people of the Fort Cobb Trail. Now, before I start this storytelling, I got to remind you that there are over 230 stories in this book. There are many about Erin Springs, Elm Springs. There are many about Bradley. There are many about Ellick, and there are many about Old Fred, the Little Washita River. I don't even know if you guys know about Old Fred, but the people who lived here were very connected to Old Fred. This was the Murrays and the McCoys. That was the Moncriefs and the Garvins. What I found is that everyone who lived along this old road is connected, which is why I can come to Erin Springs today, having been raised up in Ellick, and tell you guys that I am a Dutton and that I am a Godwin, and I belong as much in Erin Springs as I do in Ellick, as I do at the Little Washita River.